more mind-numbing rumors about Matthew Stafford, why he'll end up back with the Rams, and a tight end that the Rams should take in the first round. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do me a huge favor, join the party, subscribe to the #1 fastest growing Rams YouTube channel in the game. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. My name is Doug McCain. Friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 Sports, Bleacher Report, Dodgers Nation. I also do NFL radio for Westwood One. Today I'm flying solo. Travis will be back tomorrow, but we got a jam-packed show. I've got the tight end the Rams should target. Which Rams tight end could take over the future? We got a tight end that could be the future for this organization, and they could select him in the first round. Also, the latest on mind-numbing Matthew Stafford speculation and why Torry Holt got absolutely snubbed and deserved a Hall of Fame nod. That's coming up next, and let's dive right into it. Now, first we'll start with Matthew Stafford because I know, guys, it's exhausting. A lot of rumors, a lot of speculation. The latest today is there was a tweet from Greg Rosenthal, who hosts the Inside the NFL podcast, NFL Daily, where he tweeted out, "It's not getting enough attention that Stafford appears way more likely than not gone. Also, I'd be stunned if they got a top 5 pick for him." Daniel Jeremiah tweeted, "I'd be so fascinated to see what trade compensation would look like if Giants traded for Stafford. If they could hold on to the 3rd pick, they could have some really fun options." So there's that. Then Peter Schrager, he said a few days ago, "As for the Rams, I'll tell you what, I know it sounds crazy, but Jimmy Garoppolo is pretty well liked there this season. I know that he's not necessarily got the career that Stafford has, but he had a nice little season this year for them, so I think he'd be first option before they look to blow it up and go somewhere totally different and young." He would go on to say, "I don't think Stafford is retiring, but I think there's a chance he might wear another uniform in the near future based on what the tea leaves are saying." Now, there was a picture that Kelly Stafford posted on Instagram where it was blurry, and they said something, the caption was something like, the future's unclear and this and that. So look, the truth of the matter is that until Matthew Stafford signs the contract, until they get to the negotiating table and get an extension done on a new deal, then yeah, of course there's going to be widespread speculation because Matthew Stafford is still a top 5 to 10 quarterback when he's healthy. When he's right, he's someone you could plug into a situation and you could immediately use him to elevate that club into being a potential Super Bowl contender. So I do think that this is a good problem to have if you are the Rams, right? You have an asset that is coveted. Just look at the playoffs. I mean, if you don't have an elite quarterback, if you don't have a top 10 guy, your chances of hoisting a Lombardi trophy are minuscule. So do I think this is going to ultimately end up with Matthew Stafford playing with another team? I don't. I think that this Rams organization realizes that you just made it to the playoffs 2 years in a row. Last year was unexpected. This year you had higher expectations. You got off to a slow start, a 1-4 start, turned the season around, and ultimately you won a playoff game. And then also you go on the road against the eventual Super Bowl champions in a snowstorm, and you are 14 yards away from pulling off one of the biggest upsets that we've seen in the NFL playoffs in recent memory. And had you had won that game, you would be hosting the NFC Championship game going up against a rookie-led Commanders team with a chance to advance to the Super Bowl. So I think the way the Rams and Les Snead view this roster is they're a couple of pieces away from really legitimately contending for the Super Bowl. And you don't throw that away And look at the alternatives. Jimmy Garoppolo, you really think that, did you really hit on Puka Nacua in the 5th round and turn him into one of the best receivers in the sport? Did you really find Kobe Turner, who's already turned into one of the best pass rushers? Did you find Jared Verse at the 19th pick in the 1st round? He led the league in pressures this season, when defensive rookie of the year. Braden Fisk and Byron Young, all this young talent you've hit on. Did you really hit on all this young talent just to give the keys to Jimmy Garoppolo on a rebuild? I don't think that makes a lot of sense at all whatsoever, because let's not forget, Sean McVay is here to win Super Bowls. And I think you want to make sure that he's as engaged every single year, and that the goal is a championship. Look, Sean McVay was crying. He was in tears in the Rams locker room after they lost to the Eagles. And I think the reason why he was crying was because he knew that that loss was going to lead to a Eagles Super Bowl appearance. He knew that because they lost that game, they cost themselves another Super Bowl appearance. So he knows how close this team is. He knows where this roster is set up. And I personally believe that the conversation shouldn't be about Matthew Stafford and trading him for any type of rebuild. The conversation should be about, how do you maximize his last few years of his career? I think ultimately he will sign a 3-year contract extension with the Los Angeles Rams, and he'll ultimately retire in the Horns. And I think that the way this roster is constructed, I look for them to be aggressive in pursuing the free agent wide receivers. I think guys like T. Higgins make a ton of sense. The age, the speed, what he brings. I mean, I could totally see, after they whiffed last free agency with Jonah Jackson and Colby Parkinson, that if you hit on this free agency and you hit again on the draft for a 3rd year in a row, that you're going to be in a really, really good position to contend for the Super Bowl. I mean, whether it be Chris Godwin, whether it be, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, Amari Cooper. I mean, there's names out there. We'll see. Can you get a Devontae Adams somehow, right? I fully expect this Rams team to get another dynamic receiver to pair with Puka Nacua. Ultimately, they're going to look to trade Cooper Kupp. And then you have an offense that has a elite receiving core with Puka Nacua. And then I think you look to build in the draft with another position. So, just look at what the receiver core look like. Jordan Whittington's going to merge. Puka Nacua's there. They're both on their rookie contract. So the fact that you already have really talented receivers, one that is already playing at all-pro level on your rookie contract, who knows? Maybe you do go $20 million a year for an elite receiver, and that should be part of the plan to make sure that Stafford is confident about his decision. You got to almost recruit Stafford, I think, in a sense, and make him feel like he wants to be here. So I think it'd be an absolute catastrophic mistake if the Rams were to move off of Matthew Stafford or look to trade him, because one, this is not a really deep draft. Even let's say, for example, you got the Giants pick, right? Which you're probably not going to get, but let's say you got the number 3 pick from the Giants and you took Jador Sanders. Yes, the Sanders name is great. Yes, it'd be great for social media. There'd be a lot of hype surrounding him. You got Coach Prime on the sidelines. That'd be awesome. But let's not forget, if Jador Sanders was in last year's draft, he'd be picked around where Bo Nix was. And Bo Nix was really good for the Broncos in year 1, but this is not the deepest quarterback draft, and there's just no guarantees. There's no guarantees, but you have a guy that's currently in your organization that's going to go down. It's one of the top 10 to 20 quarterbacks in history, and he still has gas left in the tank. Those tires, there's still tread on them. They're not bald yet. So go out there and make sure you surround him with the pieces. And look, I get it. Look, you look at the numbers for Stafford. Since he signed the extension, he's a 91.8 passer rate. That's 19th in the sport. 54 touchdowns, 27 interceptions. 18th in touchdowns and the 11th most interceptions. The numbers don't blow your mind, but you know what he looks like when you get him to the playoffs with a roster that has talent on both sides of the football, especially on offense. And ask yourself this if you're the Rams. Do you think that with Matthew Stafford back and you hitting on free agents receiver, maybe another corner. I mean, if you hit on free agents, do you think you can win the Super Bowl in 2025? I think the honest answer to that, with the way the NFC looks right now, there's no reason why the Rams can't contend in 2025 because of how well they've done in the draft. So I think it'd be a mistake. I think he absolutely needs to come back. And sure, there's always the fear that he comes back and he retires, and then you have all that dead cap space there. And, of course, that wouldn't impact him. And we saw what that meant with Aaron Donald retiring. But these elite quarterbacks, these Super Bowl winning quarterbacks don't grow on trees. Think about it like this. When you had Jared Goff, he took you to a Super Bowl. He was a former number one pick, and they still realized at some point that he was not going to win it all. That's what it's all about for this organization. The standard for the Los Angeles Rams, the only way to consider a season truly successful in their minds with Sean McVay is winning a Lombardi trophy. They realized that Goff couldn't do that, and he was a former number one pick. So what makes you think that they can find some guy in the draft that's going to be able to do that? Stafford has proven he can do that. Find a way to get a deal done, and let's continue to keep this championship window open because a lot of those pillars are gone, right? Aaron Donald's gone. Cooper Kupp's going to be gone. But the most important pillar is the quarterback, and he still is capable of leading you to the promised land. Now, I'm going to tell you next about a weapon I think the Rams should strongly consider adding in the first round. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot tell you how much it means to us. And this is a great time to become an everyday listener. The draft, free agency. This is when Super Bowl champions are built. If you want to know what the Rams are going to do next February, next January in the playoffs in the Super Bowl, well, you'll find out now what that's going to look like in the next couple months because we'll have a pretty good idea about what this team is going to look like. So join that Everyday Listeners Club right now. Do not miss an episode. But here in our second segment, I want to talk about a tight end I think the Rams should strongly consider drafting in the first round. Now, the Rams have the 26th pick in the first round, and I truly believe it's about adding weapons around Matthew Stafford. Last draft, there were rumors that the Rams were interested in trading up for Rome Odunze, who ultimately went to the Bears, the receiver out of Washington. There were rumors that the Rams were so close to trading up for Brock Bowers. We heard they were into Dalton Kincaid at one point. The Rams have been looking to add a dynamic playmaking tight end, and they could get their guy in Colston Loveland. Now, Tyler Higbee, he looked good when he came back from the injury. But he's 31. He has just one more year left on his contract. Colby Parkinson, let's just be honest, it just did not work out. It was not a good signing by the Rams. They paid him over $22 million. And look, for the most part so far, it just has not worked as they had hoped it would be. Then Hunter Long, Davis Allen, they've improved, but they're not going to be those feature dynamic weapons that the Rams were looking for when they were scouting Brock Bowers. They want someone that can really open up this offense, that can be that dynamic downfield threat. And what I love about Loveland, big dude, 6'5", great athlete. He's someone that almost feels like a hybrid type of player who can give you receiver level separation and playmaking, but at the tight end spot. And he can stretch the field and you can go to him in big spots. And he has the matchup advantage against linebackers and against safeties. And I do truly believe that, yeah, this is someone who, if he's available, this is the guy that can really, really open things up for you. And I can't stress this enough. I mean, it's the versatility, the route running. He is a good blocker. And another thing I really like, he's just 20 years old. So he's got tons of upside. He's got a high ceiling, comes from a strong program in Michigan, and he's improved a lot. As far as kind of the knock on him throughout his college career was the drops. He had a 10% drop rate in 2023. That number in 2024 dropped to 3.4%. So there's other areas, contested catching and just continuing to get better at creating separation that he can improve upon. But this is a dude, man. This is a dude. Now, if the Rams can't get a receiver in free agency, I mean, another guy, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, he probably will go a little higher potentially. You've seen him mocked as high as the late teens and early 20s. But I truly think that this is the draft where the Rams, they get an offensive weapon. There's really no left tackles that you're going to get. I truly think that Alaric Jackson has earned a nice payday. He's got the familiarity with the organization. He's not Andrew Whitworth level elite. He's pretty much the 15th best left tackle, but the 15th best left tackle as far as how he was graded out by PFF, that's strong. So knowing you have your left tackle in place, you're not going to draft him. Knowing that you have Kyren Williams and you have Blake Corum, will you draft a running back? An Ashton Genty around that slot? I doubt it. I mean, if they love Genty, who knows? But I think the tight end position is really in vogue. And Tyler Warren out of Penn State is someone that has a lot of talent as well, but I like the fit of Loveland and what he can do in Sean McVay's offense. So write it down. Take a picture. I mean, if Loveland could be the guy for this Rams team. We're going to break down more draft prospects and potential guys the Rams could get in the draft at that position. I mean, Mason Taylor out of LSU, Elijah Arroyo out of Miami, Gunnar Helm out of Texas. Those are some later round guys. But if you want to get the big ticket item, kind of the flashier guy that has a lot of upside, Loveland could be that dude in this draft. But coming up next, we're talking Torry Holt and how he was snubbed again for the Hall of Fame. It's just an absolute snub. Holt deserved to be enshrined, but that's going to take us to the next segment here on Locked On Rams. Now, football season may be over, but basketball is in full swing, and there's no better way to stay in the game than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. This week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points. The best part, Prize Picks is quick and easy. You can set up your lineup in less than 60 seconds, and their fast and secure withdrawals mean I get my winnings in as little as 15 minutes. Plus, I love their weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where they get you discounted player projections for even better value. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So for the 7th time, Torry Holt was a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he did not get in. And it's very discouraging because he's going to have to wait at least another year. Hopefully next year's the year that he gets the call and that he ends up getting the gold jacket and the bus and that Canton is on the horizon for Torry Holt. But I just still cannot believe that he has not gotten the nod. I mean, you look at the numbers. He is deserving. He finished his career with 13,382 yards, 74 touchdowns, And he had 1,100 yards in 8 straight seasons. Jerry Rice is the only player in NFL history to have more seasons with at least 1,100 yards than Torry Holt. Just think about that. 8 straight years of putting up those elite numbers. And you look at the era that he played in. You had guys like Terrell Owens and Randy Moss. You had Marvin Harrison. All of those guys, they're already in the Hall of Fame. And Torry Holt, he led the NFL in receptions, yards. He was 5th in touchdowns from 2000 to 2009. So he was as productive or more productive than essentially every single receiver out there in the categories that matter in his era from 2000 to 2009. Like I said, receptions, yards, was 5th in touchdowns in that stretch. He deserved to be in. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I'm fine, sure. Like, you can let him wait, and it's okay. He's been eligible for the Hall of Fame for 11 years. But look who got in. Jared Allen, Sterling Sharp, Eric Allen, Antonio Gates, all deserving. But at this point, I mean, it's a lot. And you look at the next round, guys like Larry Fitzgerald, Julian Edelman, they'll be eligible. Des Bryant will be eligible for the first time. He deserves it. I mean, he really does. It's way too overdue. He was one of the best receivers in his era, and it's starting to get concerning, really. I mean, the good news for him is there's been 24 finalists that have been finalists for 7 or more times before getting the induction. Guys like Lynn Swann, he was a finalist 14 times. Tom Mack, Jack Youngblood. So sometimes guys have to wait, and then it's kind of all over for sure. And it's a relief, and you got it, and it's fine. But still, I mean, let Torry Holt get in the Hall of Fame. The numbers say he should be there. Just the smell test, the eye test. Go look at his highlights. Being a part of that greatest show on turf offense that really changed football. And you really can't tell the story of the NFL without Torry Holt in that offense. So, look, it's irritating. It's definitely offensive that a guy like that had that kind of career has to wait this long to get in the Hall. Do I seem biased because there's a Rams podcast? No, it's not. I mean, I don't care if he was a 49er. I don't care what team he played for. The numbers say that he should be in. And the way I look at the Hall of Fame always, too, is who are the dudes of that era? Did you dominate your era? And he certainly did. If we're talking about a 10-year stretch, a decade-long stretch from 2000 to 2009, 2010, he was one of the best players at his position. And he was consistent. 8 straight 11-yard seasons. It's mind-boggling. Torry Holt, you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.